It's hard to believe it's been a year since I started this YouTube channel, and here we are at video number 101. What a learning curve. But a big thank you for being part of the journey, for watching and commenting. Today's video is all about feeling we get. I want to create, but I don't want to spend hours or time looking for elements, cutting things out. So I decided to keep it simple. Have a bit of fun trying out one of the new products I've just added to my shop, the Ornate Frames collection. Here's a little peek behind the scenes at how I built a quirky, playful image using those frames. And a reminder that creativity doesn't always need to be complicated. Here is the base image that I started with. I love the fogginess, the mystique, the leading line. It's quite messy, but it's got something that appeals to me. And I'll often go in and create backgrounds or elements or objects that I'll put into my creative stash for when I'm feeling creative to create a composite. I'll sit back and look at the background and start to feel, what is it that I could put into this image? Do I want to tell a story? Is it for fun? Is it just about being creative? Or is it just play and let my imagination roam? Which for me, I find quite relaxing. I looked at the road and I thought, do I put a lone figure in there? Do I put an animal in there? Do I add some birds up onto the lines, up on the poles? Do I put a little house in the distance, or maybe even a door or a window? Remember, it's not about being realistic, particularly for me in some of my images that I create. I went into the creative stash where I've got all my folders of backgrounds, elements, cutouts, and sometimes by scrolling through that sparks an idea, and that's what happened. I created the next element and I put it into the folders, and I thought, I'm going to use them one day. I don't know what, I don't know when, but they're there ready for me. I'm going to turn the layer on, and what I actually used is a frame. As soon as I put it on there, I went, yes, this is exactly what I have in mind. Or, more importantly, it works for me. But I'm going to turn the layer mask off. I'll click onto the layer mask, disable it, and this is the image. Now, I'm going to talk about what blend mode and what I did with this. But as soon as I looked at this, I thought, yes, I'm going to mask away the background. And what I need to do is mask away that glass that's in the middle of the frame. I'll turn the layer mask back on, and you can see now what the end result was. I had to be a little bit of a, let's say, problem solver when I was trying to get rid of that glass that's in the middle of the frame. Tried a couple of techniques, it didn't work. So I went to another technique, and finally I got it to where I want. And that's what it's about working with Photoshop. It's knowing your tools, knowing what you can do, but it's also problem solving when one technique doesn't work. What else can I do? Now, these frames are in my shop, and they're the Ornate Frame Collection, and I'll put a link in the description for you that you can purchase these frames and they can be added to your creative stash. Now I stop and look again and think, what do I want to do? Do I want to put something in the frame? Do I just leave it as it is? Again, I went into the creative stash and I started looking around. And sometimes I'll just go into random folders to see what I've got in there, and all of a sudden, an idea can spark and I'll go, I'm going to use that element. I'll turn the next layer on. Now here's these charming two ladies with their teacups. And some people would look at it and go, but why are they in there? It just worked for me. I thought, it's quirky. This is about a fun image. I'm not going to create a masterpiece, but let's play. I'll come over to the mask and I'll actually disable the mask, and this is what it was. It was two images that I created a while back, and so I just wanted the two ladies with the teacups. I could have put the other lady in, but it didn't speak to me for this. So, in true terms in Photoshop, I'm master out. Sorry about that, but I decided to use these two ladies. Next layer, I did a stamp visible layer, Control-Alt-Shift-E or Command-Alt-Shift-E, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And sometimes I'll put this stamp visible layer in for two reasons. One, because I need a pixelated layer to use a certain technique. For example, if I wanted to remove some distractors. Or two, I do it as a stop, like a wall, which makes me think, look at the image, what else can I do with it? Does it need anything else? Or do I just go ahead and work on the color grading? The next layer is where I went into Nik 8 Vaesa, and this is where I did a tonal adjustment. I'll turn the layer on, and you can see now it's shifted the colors. Did a little bit of tweaking in there. I lifted the shadows up, played a little bit with the sliders. And for me, Nik 8 really allows me to be creative with different tools that are in this plugin into Photoshop. I was happy with it, but, what else can I do? And then I went, I don't like these lines that are sitting up above the frame. I felt it was a distractor, and also the pole on the right-hand side. Let me turn this layer on. And you can see that I got rid of them. Now, why I like this is it got rid of those lines at the top, but it gave a little bit more negative space. And I felt that pole on the right-hand side was a little bit of a distractor for me. Sometimes I'll play and just see what can I do. And I thought, yes, this is it. I'm going to now start working on color grading. I felt the story was with the frame, the two ladies. It didn't need anything else. I did try and put a bird over onto the shrubs on the left-hand side, but I felt it became a bit too cluttery. Next layer, stamp visible. This was used as what I call stop, look, and think about what you want to do with this. My next layer is a hue and saturation, and I'll use a hue and saturation not to bump up the color or the saturation, but to tone it down. I'll turn this layer on, and you can see now I've got more of a soft, muted tone. I'll open up the properties on this, and I'll come up to preset, and this is one of my favorites. I'll either do a sepia or I'll do an old style, and I choose one of those, and it desaturates the colors, but allows me to build up the colors. Let's have a look. I've desaturated by -27, and I've done a +5 on the lightness. So I'll just play with the sliders sometimes and just see what it actually does that can change that style for me. So I'll get it back to where it was. Let's continue on into the layers stack. I felt it had a little bit too much blue, so I want to shift some warmth into the image. And the key for this was basically looking at the ladies. There's a lot of warm tones in their hair, in their hat, and in the background. I'll turn this layer on, and you can see now it's just a subtle shift. what it is, I'll come up to the photo filter on the adjustments layer, and I'll come up here, and I've done a warming filter. Now, if I click on the drop-down menu, you get lots of choices. One of my favourites is cyan, but for this I felt it just needed a little hint of warmth. Now, my colour depth is subtle. I'm not cranking it up big for vibrant colours. That's my style. But if you like something that's got some robust colours that are vibrant, work with it. It's your style and what appeals to you. But it's the tools, the photo filter, that allowed me to add that subtle adjustment. Now I put a little bit of warmth in, I thought it needs a texture now. And the texture that I chose is in my Love the Blues collection available in the shop. And I'm going to turn that layer on. I get texture coming through and I get subtle blue tones. That's how I get my depth. I will sometimes add a warmth on the previous layer, then I add some blue, and so I get that lovely blue or warm and cool colours coming through. Let's click onto the texture, have a look at the blend mode. It's soft light, so I'll make it normal, and I'll also make the opacity at 100%. That's the blue. Ooh, now I look at this and think, ooh, that gives me an idea, but we'll stick with this one. I'll do undo now and I'll get it back to where it is. And so I've now got the tones that I'm after. I've got the warmth of the two ladies in the foreground. That's the contrast to the cool colours in the background. Is there a story to this? Not really. It was just about me having fun. I'll turn the next layer on and it's a stamp visible. And I'll turn that layer off, and what I've done is applied a preset or one of my tints to this to give it a bit of colour grading again. Now, when you look at it, the blues come right through, but also the contrast of the warmth of the two ladies just gives it another depth. But I felt it was a little bit strong. Now, this next adjustment layer is where I start to play with the black and white adjustment layer, and not to turn the image into black and white, but to play with the blend mode and opacity to shift the colour tones or depth. Let me turn the layer on. Let's click onto the black and white adjustment layer. But before I do that, let's come and see where it is, and I'll often use this now. It's under the black and white adjustment layer. The blend mode is screen, so I'm going to turn it to normal, and I'm going to make sure that the opacity is at 100%. That's how it looked when I first applied the black and white adjustment layer. But what I did then was drop the opacity, which dials the colour down. Then I also put a screen mode of screen. And now I get that real vintage muted tones that is what I like working with on some of my images. If I wanted to dial that up, or the opacity, I could shift that up to a 71. Let's have a look. I get a totally different look. So play with the black and white adjustment layer, blend mode and the opacity to see what that does. It will work on photos, it'll work on digital art like I'm working with here. The next layer is a stamp visible layer. I wasn't sure. Am I happy with it? No, I think it needs a little bit more. I went into Nik 8 analog, and I do love working with analog, and I've got a couple of videos on my channel about using the analog and what you can do in that filter. I'll turn that layer on. Now I'm getting some grunge, and I look at it and I think, yes, this is what I'm happy with. It's just got that real moodiness, mystique, quirky. It's fun. stamp visible layer. And then the reason I did the stamp visible layer, I'll turn that layer off. When I was looking at the image, and I hadn't seen it before, and I noticed that the line was there on the left-hand side. It was also going through the frame, and it was also on the right-hand side, and I thought, oh, that's a distractor. That's why I did the stamp visible layer, that I could use my remove tool. I'll turn that layer on, and you can see that I've got rid of it. The next layer is a photo filter. I'll turn that on, and I use the warming filter. This had a lot of blue tones in it. By adding a photo filter, which to me is like a subtle color wash, I get some warm tones coming through. And there is my image. It started off with a blue background. I then added the frame, the two quirky ladies with the teacup, and then it was about removing some distractors and lots of color grading. The main purpose was to be creative, get lost in my imagination, what I call shut the world off and just live in the moment of creating an image. Don't underestimate the value of playing and being creative, no matter what you do. For some people, it's creating an image like this. For others, it's getting out with the camera. For others, it's reading. Sometimes taking time out and just sitting back and being creative is all that the soul needs. Thanks for watching and being part of this creative journey with me over the past year. If you like this behind the scenes peek, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps keeping the creativity flowing. Here's to more ideas, more play, and another year of creating together.